If you need instant cash just like us, download Empower today and get approved for cash advance now. Stop worrying because Empower has your back. Special face.
And now we arrive at the chapter that inspired the song that continues to make me emotional for reasons I still don't understand. Bird Woman song that Mary sings to children the night before they go to the bank with their father, Birds. She sings about a woman who feeds the birds and allows anyone else to join her for just tuppence a bag. Andrew's performance is just mesmerizing. Now, you might remember that in the movie, the bird woman inadvertently creates a massive conflict between Michael Banks, his father George Banks, and the higher ups who own the bank that Mr. Banks works at. Shout out to Pamela for making that sentence unnecessarily confusing. Basically, what happens is the bank's president, Mr. Dawes Sr., tries stealing Michael's tuppence to invest in the bank. But Michael fights back, saying he wants to feed the birds and to give him his money. And overhearing this causes the bank's other account holders to also demand their money. Soon enough, the bank is in total chaos. These dorks and suits decide that George and his kids are the cause for all of it, not the 150-year-old who effectively tried mugging a child. And he gets fired in a way that's oddly humiliating. Not gonna lie, as a kid, I thought that's actually what happened when he got fired. As an adult, I'm kind of disappointed that it's not. Anyway, let's actually talk about the book this section, huh? Similar to the movie, the kids visit Mr. Banks at the bank, and on the way in, they see the bird woman sitting on the steps saying her catchphrase, feed the birds, tuppence back. But remember, that conflict where George is a busy businessman who really likes business doesn't exist in this book. Michael actually gets a bag of bird feed. Also, Mary Poppins there, and one of the bird woman's birds steals a roast off her hat, which she doesn't appreciate, and responds by threatening to cook the bird into a pie. No, Mary Poppins doesn't play around in this version. That's pretty much everything that happens in this chapter, though. After the day out, they go home, talk to each other a bit more about how interesting and mysterious the bird woman is, then they fall asleep. Interesting how the movie's writers decided to use one of the most boring chapters in the whole book to create the biggest conflict that we see in the movie. I'm genuinely curious how they decided on that and what else they may have said.
So surprisingly, actually seeming good.
Chapter 8 introduces us to Mrs. Corey, another character that we see in the film's introduction when Bert's singing. He says, "Your daughters were shorter than you, but they grew." While that is true for the source material, there is so much more to these characters. One day, Jane and Michael join Mary Poppins while she's out running errands. They make a stop with gingerbread and a curious little shop that the children had never seen before. They go inside and are served by Fanny and Annie, two of the largest women that Jane and Michael had ever seen. Then, the smaller Mrs. Corey shows up. This thing that has ever been happened. Because not only does she say that seeing Mary and the Banks children surprised her as much as when Christopher Columbus discovered America, but she also makes a comment about remembering when they made the world. She was well out of her teens by then. I know, right? Who is this lady? Gandalf's mom? Well, after welcoming in Mary Poppins and scolding her daughters for not giving them their gingerbread fast enough, the old lady also breaks off two of her fingers and gives them to John and Barbara to eat. Because apparently they're made of barley sugar, so why not eat the old lady's fingers, right? I will say one thing they got completely wrong about this, though, that in the books, she's cool to her daughters, and as a result, they're both nervous wrecks who always look like they're on the edge of an emotional breakdown, not giggly little schoolgirls. Skipping ahead to later that night, the gingerbread that Mrs. Corey sold them came with printed paper stars on the inside wrapping. After Jane and Beth had fallen asleep, Mary came into the room, took the stars out of their respective hiding places, and quietly snuck outside. Jane and Michael, who aren't actually asleep, look out the window as Mary Poppins meets up with, well, but Mrs. Corey and her daughter. Together, all four of them climb to the top of a nearby hill and set up a ladder. It turns out those stars that came with the children's gingerbread were real stars. It's up to these ladies to put them in the sky where everyone in London could enjoy their beauty. Then the chapter ends with Jane asking Michael a question that, to this day, even the wisest of philosophers haven't been able to answer. Are these stars gold paper, or is the gold paper?
Oh man, that's how I escaped.
Chapter 9 begins on a sunny Saturday
God, I love how
afternoon. Jane and Mike
scramped.
a party, and Mary Poppins stayed at the house to
God, I love how scramped someone
once
right
and
there.
see the world expected. It starts with baby John yelling at the sun for shining in his eyes, the sun apologizing for it. And suddenly, the bird that lives on the Banks' chimney shows up on the windowsill to ask Barbara for some of her biscuit, and she obliges. I don't think this chapter has an equivalent in the movie, but that starling flying up to the window does remind me of when Mary did that duet with the bird during Spoonful of Sugar, so maybe some inspiration was taken. John and Barbara complain that adults have a stupid way of talking, including Jane and Michael. Not only can they not understand what John and Barbara say, but they don't understand what other things say. Apparently, just last Monday, Barbara heard Jane say that she wanted to know what language the wind speaks. For those confused, it turns out the wind, the stars, trees, and animals all speak the same language as babies. But when babies grow up, they forget that language. At least most babies do. Mary Poppins is the only exception. Now I can't help but wonder what she would have been like as a baby. Watch that series come to Disney Plus next year. Young Mary Poppins. It's an animated series.
Mhm.
Don't get too excited. Despite its name, Chapter 10 does not involve werewolves. It does incorporate some animals, though. It opens with Mary Poppins running around the house like she's late for something, which means she doesn't have the least amount of patience for Jane and Michael's shenanigans. In fact, at one point, Mary tells Michael that the mere sight of him is more than any self-respecting person can stand. Like, dang, girl, you know this kid's maybe 6 years old, right? Well, later that night, the children wake up and hear a voice right outside their door whispering that they need to leave right away. While this would terrify me to my core, they decided that they should follow the voice all the way to the zoo. Now, normally the zoo would be closed at this late of an hour, but it's apparently a special occasion. At least it's a fair that took the tickets. And when they get inside, they see Admiral Boom sitting in a cage. It turns out this special occasion is because the birthday is on the night of a full moon. Whose birthday? Just take a guess. Kids wander around the zoo and see animals where people should be and people where animals should be. Snakes are slithering around, making conversations. Monkeys are riding on the fat man's back like he's an mountain. It's total chaos, at least at first glance. The children enter the snake house where they see none other than Mary Poppins sitting on a log in the middle of the room. A king cobra slithers up to her. We learn that it's her first cousin once removed on her mother's side, so just slightly closer related than it was to Frodo.
He's quite special. That's once removed on his mother's side.
And the snake gives her its old skin as a birthday present because which wants old skin? After that, they form a ring around Mary Poppins and start a ceremonial dance of some kind. We don't get a description of it, but it must have been soothing because Jane and Michael fell asleep listening to it. When they woke up in the room the next morning, their first thought
He
was,
also doesn't
wow,
pick up
what a strange dream.
from
But they
Capsize in
realized it must have been real
1972.
because their dreams were the exact same. Naturally, when they asked Mary about it, she pretended the idea was ludicrous. They didn't notice she was wearing a snakeskin belt, so she didn't have to
Saying
admit
that
it.
the
They knew
film
the truth.
begins in 1970, in 1972. So this is like Capsize in
That's because
1972.
mythology are gonna appreciate this chapter. It takes place on a cold December evening when Jane, Michael, and
But
Mary
this
are
one,
going Christmas shopping at the largest shop in the world. This was an activity that kids and Mary enjoyed. Kids because they would be getting new toys soon, and Mary because you got to look at her reflection in all the store windows. I haven't talked about it yet, but the book version of Mary Poppins is obsessed with looking at herself. There's more than one occasion throughout the story where her irritation fades shortly after she catches a glimpse of her own reflection. Kind of funny considering she gets annoyed with the reflection in the film. Much to the children's disappointment, their Christmas shopping was about to end when out of nowhere, interesting happened, which it usually does when Mary Poppins is around. A scantily clad little girl, a rocket, a sheet of fabric around her body, fades into the toy store, and she introduces herself as Maya, one of the Pleiades. For those who aren't familiar, in mythology, the Pleiades are the seven daughters of the Titan Atlas and the sea nymph Pleione. They were also nursemaids and teachers to the infant Dionysus, god of wine. Before you can meet those, after their father was burdened with holding the heavens on his shoulders, the Pleiades felt so bad for him that they all committed suicide. This made Zeus feel real guilty. So, to make up for it, he turned them into the star cluster that we know today as the Pleiades. In the real myth, this girl Maya would be the mother of Hermes, the messenger god, by Zeus, but in this story, she looks about 10 years old. She says she's come down to buy gifts for her six sisters, Electra, Tayegede, Alcyone, Solano, Sterope, and Merope. What she gets them doesn't really matter, but on the way out of the store, Jane observes that no one got Maya any gifts, so Mary Poppins does the unthinkable. She takes off her gloves, the first pair she ever owned, by the way, and gives them to her. Then they very sadly have to part ways. Maya walks up an invisible staircase back to her rightful place in the sky with a whole crowd of people watching and the bank's crew waving goodbye. While Solo Sam, the Banks fans' adventure is about to come to an end. Chapter 12 opens on the first day of spring. They knew it was the first day of spring because Mr. Banks sang in the back, but he really does that one day